In a stunning development that has shaken the global aviation industry, every McDonnell Douglas MD-11 aircraft has been ordered to remain grounded following an emergency directive issued by the Federal Aviation Administration. What began as a routine safety inspection has now escalated into a worldwide crisis, with airlines and cargo companies scrambling to adapt to one of the most significant fleet suspensions in decades. The MD-11, once hailed as the future of long-haul flight, now finds itself under a cloud of uncertainty that could mark the end of its operational era. The FAA emergency order came after a series of incidents that raised alarming questions about the aircraft's structural integrity. Multiple maintenance reports indicated possible fatigue in the main wing spars and hydraulic system irregularities that could, under certain conditions, result in catastrophic failures. Engineers working across different continents began noticing consistent anomalies during routine checks, tiny cracks, pressure drops, and sensor errors that, when reviewed collectively, painted a far more serious picture than anyone expected. When the first official notice from the FAA arrived, aviation authorities in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East quickly followed with similar grounding orders. Overnight, more than 100 MD-11s were pulled from service, parked on tarmacs, and surrounded by maintenance crews awaiting instructions. For major freight operators like FedEx, UPS, and Lufthansa Cargo, this wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a logistical nightmare. Entire delivery schedules had to be restructured, shipments delayed, and global supply chains thrown into temporary disarray. The MD-11's story has always been complex. Born from the legendary DC-10, it was McDonnell Douglas's ambitious attempt to modernize the wide-body trijet concept. First taking flight in 1990, it promised improved range, efficiency, and capacity. Airlines across the world initially saw it as a bridge between the older generation of aircraft and the new wave of twin-engine jets that were beginning to dominate the skies. Yet, despite the technological optimism, the MD-11 quickly gained a reputation for being difficult to handle, particularly during landings. Pilots often described it as an aircraft that punished even the smallest mistakes. In the early years, passenger airlines like Finnair, KLM, and Swissair proudly showcased their MD-11 fleets. Its sleek design, tall tail, and triple-engine configuration gave it an unmistakable silhouette in the sky. But behind that beauty were design compromises that would haunt the aircraft throughout its life. Accidents like the 1999 Swissair Flight 111 disaster near Nova Scotia cast a long shadow over the MD-11's reputation. Although that crash was ultimately traced to an in-flight fire and not the airframe itself, the public perception of the model began to shift. As the new millennium arrived, more airlines began phasing out their passenger MD-11s in favor of twin-engine aircraft like the Boeing 777 and Airbus A330. These newer jets offered better fuel efficiency, lower maintenance costs, and simpler operations. By 2004, nearly all major airlines had retired the MD-11 from passenger service. However, its story didn't end there. Cargo operators saw an opportunity. Its high payload and long range made it a perfect workhorse for freight. Companies like FedEx and UPS purchased dozens of MD-11s and converted them into freighters, giving the aircraft a second life that lasted another 2 decades. Now, that second life may have reached its end. The FAA emergency directive was not issued lightly. Preliminary data suggests that several MD-11s experienced simultaneous hydraulic pressure drops and autopilot disengagement events during descent phases. While no crashes have occurred recently, the pattern was too serious to ignore. Aviation safety experts describe the grounding as a preventive move to avoid another potential disaster. One FAA spokesperson described the issue as a combination of age, stress, and design legacy that has finally caught up with the platform. Behind the scenes, teams of engineers and investigators are working around the clock to identify the root cause. In hangars from Memphis to Frankfurt, technicians are removing access panels, scanning fuselages with ultrasonic equipment, and analyzing decades of flight data. Some of the early findings point to material fatigue in the wing root area, where stress accumulates during repeated pressurization cycles. Others suspect that certain hydraulic components, originally designed for shorter maintenance intervals, may have been extended too long due to the aircraft's aging fleet status. The grounding's impact on the global cargo industry has been immediate. FedEx alone operates more than 50 MD-11 freighters, many of which serve long-haul routes connecting North America, Asia, and Europe. With those aircraft suddenly unavailable, the company has had to rely on its smaller Boeing 767 and 777 fleets, as well as temporary leasing agreements with partner carriers. Logistics networks that depend on precise timing have felt the ripple effects. Some perishable goods have been rerouted, while others have faced delivery delays. For aviation historians, the MD-11's current crisis feels symbolic, a final chapter in the story of a jet that always seemed caught between innovation and imperfection. The aircraft's design philosophy was bold but built on compromises forced by an era of transition. When it debuted, the aviation world was already moving toward twin-engine efficiency, thanks to ETOPS certifications that allowed twins to fly transoceanic routes safely. The MD-11's third engine, mounted on its tail, represented an older philosophy that was rapidly becoming obsolete. Yet, for decades, it defied expectations by remaining a vital part of global cargo infrastructure. Pilots who flew the MD-11 often describe it with respect and caution. Its control systems were advanced for their time, but required precise handling. The aircraft's long landing gear and unique center of gravity behavior meant that landings demanded extra care. Many flight training programs developed special simulator modules just for MD-11 operations, focusing on managing descent energy and pitch control. In the wrong hands, it could be unforgiving, but for skilled aviators, it was a rewarding and powerful aircraft to command. As news of the grounding spread, aviation enthusiasts around the world began posting tributes online, photos and videos of MD-11s in their prime-flooded social media. From the iconic purple and orange FedEx livery to the sleek silver of former KLM passenger jets, fans reminisced about the aircraft's distinctive roar and its role in bridging generations of aviation design. For many, the MD-11 represented a time when aircraft still had personality, when every model looked and sounded different. In the meantime, the FAA and international authorities have made it clear that the grounding will remain in effect until a full inspection protocol is established and completed. Experts predict that could take several months. Some insiders believe that the cost of required repairs and modifications might be so high that many operators will simply choose to retire their fleets altogether. If that happens, the grounding might effectively signal the permanent end of MD-11 operations. While the focus remains on safety, there's also an emotional undercurrent running through the aviation community. The MD-11 wasn't just another airplane. It was a symbol of McDonnell Douglas's final chapter before merging with Boeing in 1997. For many engineers and pilots, it represents a lost era of independent innovation. Its grounding, therefore, feels like watching the last heartbeat of a once great lineage fade away. Cargo terminals in major airports now have rows of silent MD-11s, their engines covered, waiting for clearance that may never come. Maintenance crews move among them, documenting serial numbers, recording structural readings, and preparing for what could be an indefinite pause. Some aircraft might return to the skies, but others will likely face dismantling, a slow and quiet farewell to machines that have carried millions of tons of goods across the world. Aviation safety analysts emphasize that this kind of grounding, though dramatic, is part of a system that works. The MD11's grounding is not a condemnation of the aircraft itself, but a testament to how modern aviation prioritizes prevention. By catching potential failures early, the industry avoids loss of life and learns from every technical anomaly. Each inspection, each data point, contributes to safer skies for future generations of aircraft. Still, the broader implications are hard to ignore. The MD11's absence will reduce available cargo capacity globally by a noticeable percentage. For some regions, especially those that rely on overnight express deliveries, this could lead to short-term price increases and logistical bottlenecks. Airlines and shipping companies are already exploring alternative solutions, including leasing older Boeing 747s or accelerating the deployment of next-generation freighters like the Boeing 777X and Airbus A350F. For Boeing, which absorbed McDonnell Douglas, this crisis also carries echoes of legacy responsibility. Although the MD11 is no longer in production, Boeing still provides parts and technical support. The FAA investigation will likely involve collaboration with Boeing's engineering teams, who possess the original design archives and can assist in evaluating the structural concerns. Industry insiders speculate that the findings might also influence how regulators treat aging aircraft fleets in the future. Many cargo airlines operate jets that are decades old, relying on maintenance and retrofitting to keep them airworthy. If the MD11's issues are found to stem from material fatigue or outdated design limitations, it could set new precedents for retirement timelines and inspection intervals. As the investigation deepens, stories are emerging from maintenance crews and pilots who have long warned about the MD11's quirks. Some describe persistent hydraulic leaks. Others mention avionics issues that grew harder to fix as parts became scarce. Over time, the support network for the MD11 has thinned, making even routine repairs more complicated. The grounding may, therefore, be less a reaction to one specific incident and more an acknowledgement of an airframe reaching the natural end of its life cycle. In hangars and flight simulators, younger pilots who once trained on the MD11 are now moving on to newer aircraft, but they carry with them stories of a machine that taught them precision, respect, and humility. Many say that flying the MD11 made them better aviators, because it demanded nothing less. In the coming weeks, the FAA will release preliminary findings from its technical review. Early reports suggest that while some issues can be repaired, others might be inherent to the aircraft's original design. If that proves true, recertification could be extremely difficult. Some operators might lobby for limited exemptions for low-cycle aircraft, but regulatory authorities are unlikely to take risks with an aging model under scrutiny. For now, the world watches as the MD11 fleet sits grounded, a silent fleet marking the end of an era. Each aircraft tells a story of transatlantic routes, sleepless cargo runs, and the countless people who kept them flying. Whether this grounding becomes a temporary pause or a permanent farewell, it is clear that the MD11's legacy will endure. It remains a symbol of ambition, innovation, and the complex balance between engineering brilliance and human limitation. The FAA emergency order might have stopped the MD11 from flying, but it cannot erase what the aircraft achieved. For more than 3 decades, it connected continents, powered industries, and carried the weight of global commerce. Its silhouette will continue to inspire aviation lovers long after its engines fall silent. And as investigators piece together the final details of what went wrong, one truth remains certain. Every era in aviation eventually comes to an end, but its spirit never truly disappears from the skies it once ruled.